here is one of those moments where I get to sit here and say, this is why I champion the more independent filmmakers, is why I'm a fan of Paul Knight. A good few years back, we are talking way back when I first kind of started, I was lucky enough to catch a screener copy of Landscape of Lies. It wasn't perfect, but you could see what this director was trying to do with what little money he did have on this project. Then he comes out and he gives us 24 little hours, or 24 hours in London, or London by the Moonlight, or whatever it was called, because it kept getting its name changed. And again, another movie that had some really, really strong, solid performances to it. Not a great deal of money behind it, but you could see again what Paul Knight was doing with this movie. And here we are now, Fyre Rises. And I waited a minute before I sat down and talked about this, because I needed to really kind of take in what I was watching, because whereas Paul Knight with his movies before, it has kind of been these low-key stories in London, this is kind of one of those, but it's also got massive sort of world-building, international James Bond, Jason Bourne kind of feel to it, which is just nuts. And this feels like a huge leveling up for Paul Knight, and one that not only has worked, not only is great, but also just sort of proves that, yeah, give someone a little bit of time, a little bit of money, with consistency, with passion, with the output, they will give you something truly special. And I think Fyre Rises is quite a special movie. So at its very core, this movie is about Richard Fyre. Richard Fyre is kind of down on his luck. He's not really finding much chance getting a job. He's just trying to get on with his life, but his previous life is sort of hanging over him. He owes a ton of money to this guy called Priest. Priest is just like this local gangster asshole. We're going to talk a lot about him in a minute. They're in a bit of a situation, and then he's offered a chance. Priest comes to him and says, you've been doing all this work for me to pay back your debt. I have one more job, and that will be your debt fully repaid. Your debt to me fully repaid. You can go on with your life. Your family can go on with their lives. And of course, at first, he doesn't want to do it because he's kind of out of that life. He doesn't want to be part of this hodgepodge mess of these weird characters that we're going to come to know. With a little bit of gentle persistence from Priest and Priest's gang, he thinks to himself, you know what? I'm just going to go and do it. I need to go and do this one last job. If it gets me from under his shadow, happy days. So he goes to do that. And where we go from here is we go from London to Spain, which is pretty awesome. Nice little international romp that we're going to have. So he goes to Spain to do this job. Stuff and things happen. Things go well. Things go not so well. Things happen. Shenanigans. It's a movie. So you can kind of understand where this is going to go. So then when he comes back to London, he comes to find that, well, I don't want to spoil anything. It is one of those kinds of movie. We learn a little bit more about his past before his past, which is what I mean about the world building, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Because yes, he worked for a London shitbag, and he worked for this gang, but before that, we come to find that he may have worked for some other shady mother effers. We could have the makings of the next British sort of legacy franchise movies, which would be awesome to see, and he's definitely set some fantastic groundwork. So I want to talk a little bit about our cast and our crew, starting with the titular Fyre, because yes, the Fyre in Fyre Rises is actually our main character, which is cool. Richard Fyre is played by Paul Marlon. Not somebody I'm massively familiar with, but he does have one of those faces that is kind of like, I do recognize you, I'm not entirely sure where from, but I do recognize you. And I'd quite happily watch a few more movies with you. In this movie, I felt his role was meaty enough to keep him going, but he played it subtle enough to keep me interested. And that was the case of, like, I didn't really know what was going to happen at any one time. The guy's a bit of a pacifist to start off with, and we come to realize why that is. And it's pretty obvious that he's probably done some ill shit in the past he's not entirely proud of, and we get that, and I like that, but we also know that when the time comes, and the time will come, believe me, it is coming, this guy, Paul Marlon, Fyre, is just gonna all hell is going to rain down, all hell is going to break loose, and we're going to fully enjoy these moments. So you've got Priest, the big baddie, who we'll talk about in a second, and then his second in command, well, not a second in command, but the woman he sends with Fyre to Spain to make sure the job gets done. And this is the character of Ellie, played by Tia Owo Moyela. She is really cool. I really got a good vibe out of this actress. I kind of love how, even though she's put upon in this situation and she's been made to go with Fyre to Spain, doesn't really love it, she's pretty okay with it. I'll deal with it, I'll roll with it, I'm going to do what I'm going to do because I'm a bit of a badass and I'm going to make sure everybody here knows I'm a bit of a badass. But then there's this really kind of sensitive, naive side to her that you don't see a lot of, but when you do get cracks of it, it really cements who this character is. I loved the character of Ellie. Could have done with a little bit more of her, but to be fair, we do get a good chunk, and she is pretty awesome. And then we've got Dan Richardson. Dan Richardson as Hooper, who is a friend of Fyre from back in the day. And when I talk about the past before the past, that's what I mean. These guys work together for an organization. I don't really want to do spoilers as such, but we will talk a little bit about the world building later. But so these guys kind of work together in the past, and there is a good relationship, a good friendship there. Even though it gets a little bit soured throughout the movie, we know that these two guys would probably do pretty much anything for each other, and that's evident in the moments that we see them. And that also brings me to Hooper's wife, who I think gets some of the best dialogue in this movie. And by the way, Paul Knight's dialogue in this movie is freaking on point. We get some amazing little monologues, some cracking little one-liners, but some of them go to the character of Isabella, played by Millie Caltera di Montesano, and she is just so awesome. She only has 2 or 3 scenes, but there's this line of dialogue when she's talking about going to kill people in her stilettos that you just completely and utterly are this is a badass bitch, and she would do that. She would 100% rock up on you with a rocket launcher and some sleek stilettos, and that's the kind of kill I want. If somebody's going to kill me that way. I love the character of Isabella, and I do think if we go forward and we have more movies or whatnot, we need to talk about Aaron Sidwell. Aaron Sidwell plays the character of Priest. I love Aaron Sidwell in this movie. I love the character of Priest in this movie. This character is about as horrendous and heinous and awful and charismatic and funny and genuinely nice. Just what a character Priest is. Priest is probably one of my favourite characters that I've watched in a movie in a good long while. Now, you could turn around and say he is picking and choosing moments from sort of Heath Ledger's Joker. I've seen that comparison made. I don't fully get it, because Heath Ledger's Joker, although is sinister, chaotic, and chaos incarnate, is quite subdued and downplays those moments. He's not overly charismatic in the way that Priest is. Priest is having fun in life. Priest is really vexed by the situation when it's not going the right way. He's super pissed off, and he super lets people know. Heath Ledger's Joker, I didn't get all that with that. Don't get me wrong, I love that performance, but this is not picking and choosing moments from that performance, as I've seen people say. And that's not me knocking down what people think about this character. I just think this character is so much more than that. This character brings a next level, a sort of elevation to this movie that you could only get from a performance like this, because if it goes one notch further, it's already at 11, but if it goes to 12, it's campy, it's cartoonish, it's a caricature of every other villain we've ever seen. But if it doesn't quite go to 11 and sits at 10, you don't quite get that intensity, that chaos, or anything that you need for this role. And I thought Aaron Sidwell smashed it out the park. I can see why people might think this is a bit much. I can see that, and that's completely their prerogative. It needs this character to really smash it out the park, because otherwise, why do we care about Fyre's plight? Why do we care that he is worried that this guy is a loose cannon? if he's just your normal Bond villain or your normal villain, like, why do we care? For me, Aaron Sidwell is a 5 out of 5 performance, and we do have another villain in this movie in the form of Jake Canuso as Alejandro. And yes, I have a smile on my face because he batters people to within an inch of their lives with a special weapon. Now, I don't want to spoil it because when you see it, you're going to be sitting there going, what the hell am I watching? What is going on right now? But mark my words, it's totally brilliant. Jake Canuso plays this role just to a T. It's another one that if you go just a little bit further, they just take it to the edge. And I kind of think that maybe Paul Knight as a director was like, you know what? Let's go over the edge with this character. Let's just step over that line. Let's do what we got to do to make this as out there as humanly possible. Because while he's doing this, it's cutting between scenes. I don't think you get the realism of that and the brutality of that without what Jake Canuso's doing with Alejandro. Honestly, one of the best scenes in the movie is just him beating the crap out of... I'm not going to say any more because I'm not doing spoilers. We do have a couple of familiar faces in there as well. If you watch the trailer for Fyre Rises, there is a little bit of a voiceover. That is Ricky Grover. I am a fan of Ricky Grover from back in the 11 o'clock show when he used to be Bulla in this prison cell doing his little, this is what a hard man does and all that kind of thing. I'm a fan of Ricky Grover. It was really cool to see him in this. He's not in it a lot, but it was great to see his character. And he gives a really nice bit of dialogue. And again, I'll talk about dialogue in a second. Alana Wallace, I'm a huge Alana Wallace fan. You guys know this. I've been following her since forever. She pissed off abroad and now she's like not really making movies as such. This is the kind of role that I think Alana is almost born to play. You know, like the psychopath, badass bitch. Like, it's her kind of bag and I love seeing her do it. Let's talk about Paul Knight. It's a huge step up. It's a really big step up. This film feels epic. It feels grand. It feels like we're setting stones for more to come. It feels like there's maybe a world here. We're doing some world building. But as well, one thing I've always said about Paul Knight is that I like his dialogue. He does good dialogue. Does he go out of his way to reinvent the wheel with the originality and stories like that? Not really. He does kind of stick to what he knows and he sits in his bag, which is completely fine because he's able to write dialogue that is engaging. He's able to write monologue, and that will always be the thing that he does best for me. I know he's probably going to take a little bit of umbrage to that because, like, dude, I'm a good director. And yes, he is a good director. And you can tell that he's got the right crew behind him because the cinematography in this movie is brilliant. London looks like London. Spain looks like Spain and all that other good stuff. We even go to Russia for a little bit, which is pretty awesome. He's able to get the right cast, the right crew, the right people to bring his words to life. It is his words that are the hero of this piece. Everything else is like everybody just elevates it. Like Aaron Sidwell elevates the dialogue. Richard Fyre elevates the dialogue. Even the stuff that the sidekicks say, like the Wolf Pack, when they come in and they're doing their little bits, yes, it's quite generic dialogue, but these actors that have been cast to play these roles elevate it. They give absolutely 100% what they can give. Everybody he has cast in this movie, from the top roles to the smaller roles, there are no small roles, but from the top down, he has cast brilliantly. And that's what makes this movie a special movie for me. I genuinely hope people see Fyre Rises because it's a shining example of how you don't need all the money in the world. You can still create this world, this universe. I'm not going to do spoilers, but there is a little bit at the end of the movie. Sets the groundwork for something going forward if we do it, but it also gives you a little more of an idea about the past before the past, as I'll say. And this was one of the things that annoyed me because there are like some people on the poster, there are some people in the starring headlines. You have Cynthia Rothrock, who I absolutely adore. I've always adored ever since I was a wee lad. You've got Eric Roberts, who I do love a bit of Eric Roberts. Like, who doesn't? You know, he just He always turns up, he always gives it, and he's always got it. Joseph Millson plays a little role. Everybody knows I love a bit of Joseph Millson these days. And then you've got the good old Marc Bannerman, who has been returning in Paul Knight movies ever since Paul Knight started making movies. And it was great to see all these guys, but it was just this little scene that it's basically a stinger to maybe hopefully set something up going forward. And I suppose this is the point. It left me thinking, I want to see that movie. I want to see what these guys are talking about now. So it's great because we've started with the first movie in the franchise where we have this low-key story, this low-key thing with Richard Fyre, who we're getting to know him, we're getting to figure out who he is, who his family is, and we're getting to figure out what motivates him. And we get this low-key London-based, yes, we go to Spain, but low-key London-based story that's going to get us invested. And then we go multinational, international, global. We're going all over the place. We're probably going to end up in Uzbekistan at some point. I don't know why I chose that, but it's probably the furthest place away that I could think of. So that's why I said it. For me, I kind of love the wolf pack in this movie. I'd love to see a little short movie of what they do in their spare time. That would be pretty cool. I don't know why I thought that, but I kind of just did. I love the baddies. I thought Aaron Sidwell was unbelievable as Priest. This is getting a little bit long-winded, as I thought it would do. But honestly, this is one of those times where I review a lot of movies, but I don't often get to review movies from the people that I've discovered and just fell in love with. And Paul Knight is a director that I've fell in love with. I love his work. Is it the best stuff you're ever going to see ever? Probably not. There's a lot of great stuff out there. But you cannot deny that as a director and putting his craft onto the screen, putting his vision up there for us to watch, he's exponentially grown so quickly from the likes of Landscape of Lies, which I know was years and years and years ago, to this, to Fyre Rises, which I think is a really, really accomplished piece of work. And that's why it's special for me. So if you get a chance to see it, it's on streaming platforms, Amazon, Sky, all that kind of good stuff. If you get a chance to see Fyre Rises, please do hit me in the comments down below. If you saw it, let me know what you thought of it. If you completely disagree with me on anything that I said, please do let me know. That's where the conversation continues, and I love having the conversation down there. If you think I'm right and you think that there's more to come from Paul Knight that is going to blow us out the water again, then please do let me know that as well. I just like knowing what people think about the films that I love from the filmmakers I want to genuinely see do well and get better. This movie is a fucking great watch. It's a great time. You have fun with this movie. You'll enjoy this movie. It'll break your heart at times. It'll make you squeal at times. You'll kind of turn away from the camera. You'll not want to see what's going on at times. This movie has a little bit of everything that I think as movie goers, and this is a movie-goers movie, as movie-goers, you will love. For me, this is the best thing Paul Knight's made so far. This is something that really gives me an idea of actually, we thought we knew what Paul Knight could give us, and now you times that by 10, now we kind of know exactly where we're going. And if this guy just keeps leveling up and keeps getting better, Fyre Rises feels like a calling card for Paul Knight, the cast and the crew of this movie, everyone behind this movie. This is a calling card, and I hope people go and check it out and enjoy it. But for now, my name is Kevin Halden. This has been Nerdly Out Loud, the official channel of nerdly.co.uk, your favourite British website for all your news, reviews, and exclusive interviews. I like to cover everything from big budget to no budget to low budget. Check out Fyre Rises. I think you'll love it. There's loads of stuff that is currently flooding my head that I realise I've not talked about, but this video is getting long enough. Fyre Rises. It's a 5 out of 5 from me. I know I've not really said that yet, but it is a 5 out of 5 from me, and this is the best thing Paul Knight's done so far. And I hope to God that the next movie I watch that he puts out there, I get to say, this is the best thing Paul Knight has done so far. Because genuinely, that's all I want. That's all I want from any filmmaker. Get better, do better, make more good stuff. And this guy, up, 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 up. I can see the trajectory. There is no end to it. And I'm out.